Hey everyone, I am Kim Cafano, aka the Middle School Mommer, and I am here to help you connect with your child during this season as well as get you equipped to parent them well. So, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, please be sure to hit subscribe and ring the bell for future notifications. And today, I am very happy to welcome my guest, Pete Sutton. Pete is the pastor of Student Ministries at Compass Church, and he has 7 children, so he knows a thing or two about junior hires in this middle school stage. And today we are going to be talking specifically about technology and tweens and teens. So I wanted to speak into this topic, wanted you to speak into this topic because partly it's just kind of that classic topic that every parent has a question about.
Yeah.
I feel that a lot of parents, even if they have made decisions, they're not sure about the decisions they've made. They have lack of peace. Other families are doing it differently. So what do you have to say? Like, you have the room for 10 minutes and say there is a room full of parents sitting here. What is it you want them to know?
It is. It's a topic that everybody has to deal with, and it's hard to avoid it. I remember when my kids were in middle school in 6th grade, and we didn't give our kids phones. But I remember going to the parent meeting, to begin the year, and they said, one of the parents asked, if we need to communicate with our kids, how do we do that? Do we call the school? Do we send them? How do we do that? And he said, well, just call your kid's phone. And the mom said back, well, my kid doesn't have a phone. He says, well, like 80% of the kids here do. So, we kind of expect parents to have, give their kids a phone at this stage.
An expectation.
And I was blown away at 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't give my kid something that's worth $300 to just tote around the community at 6th grade, but it was a surprise. And then we've got our kids asking for technology, phones. And my kids said, well, Dad, what if I need to call you? And I said, well, you said all your friends have phones, so just borrow one.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a wise response.
Absolutely. But we have decided that there's no age of, the right age to give our kids phones. We feel like there's a right stage, there's a right point in each one of their lives where a couple things come together. One, they have a need. I wouldn't give a kid a phone if they didn't have a need for it. Mm-hmm. It's not an entertainment tool. Mm-hmm. It's not something just to pacify them when you're on a long car ride. Yeah. It is a very, it can be very dangerous piece of technology. Yeah. And so there has to be a need. Then there has to be a level of responsibility. There needs to be a level of expectation that our kids can meet. And for our kids, it's things like taking care of their room, their laundry, not losing their Chromebook.
Yes.
When we see those kind of behaviors, we know that they're, ready to manage that phone. And then the third piece for us was always communication. Are our kids open to communicating with us? Mm-hmm. Because if we give them this piece of technology, and you know how technology is, it has a tendency to suck us in and isolate us. Mm-hmm. And people, especially in early adolescence, it can isolate and, they become withdrawn, absorbed in this little digital world, and then communication gets cut off. Yeah. So we said we want to make sure that our kids have open communication patterns with us, that when we sit down at the dinner table and we're taking them to or from an activity in the car, while we're hanging out at the house, we have a really solid communication relationship where we can talk to them about hard things, because hard things are going to come up when your kid has a cell phone and technology. And so those are the 3 things that we said have to happen for us to give our kids a phone. And our kids know that, and so they really kind of rallied on the responsibility piece, and they really grew on the communication side of things. And when the need popped up, they got a phone. And some of our kids got phones at 12. Some of our kids got phones at 15. There was no rhyme or reason to it. And I've got older kids that didn't need phones, 10 years ago when they were 16, 17, 18. But it definitely, it has to do with each kid's readiness. And then when you give a kid a phone, I think it's super important to recognize that it's not just about the phone, it's about what's on the phone. They have access to movies and music, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and probably a million apps that I'm not aware of, to varying levels of risk.
Yeah.
And so some of the experts today are saying that really young people shouldn't be given a phone until at least later junior high school even, some experts say.
Wow.
And most experts agree that 16 is about the right age for kids to begin engaging in social media.
And when you say experts, are you talking about psychologists? Like what are you?
Yeah, psychologists, sociologists, a lot of the studies, the clinical studies that have been done on the effects of cell phones, the usage, the amount of time spent on it, the temptation to be up all hours of the night watching things or checking your phone, having it by your bedside. There's a lot of studies that have been done that show how detrimental that is to a kid's health. And so drawing the right boundaries around that, about not letting the phones, we have a rule in our house, phones don't go upstairs. They're for the main floor only. Okay. They charge them on the main floor, they keep them on the main floor, they don't take them upstairs, they don't take them in the basement. And when our kids have friends come over, we tell them, hey, phones stay on this floor.
Same rule.
Yeah. It's super important. They're not charged next to their bed. No middle schooler is living an urgent life that needs that. No high schooler has needs that are that urgent.
Right.
And we're teaching our kids to draw boundaries. We're teaching them, self-control. I kind of find like, as you're preparing your son or daughter to learn to drive, I think you should take the same approach with the cell phone. Right? So when your son or daughter gets their driver's permit, they'll take a class. They'll learn about the car, how to use it, how to maintain it, how to drive it, how it operates, the rules of the road. But not only that, but then they have many hours that they'll spend behind the wheel with you right next to them, or a driver's instructor. And oftentimes, right, they have that break, right?
Yeah.
And that's super important for them to learn to drive because you're sitting next to them, you're coaching them, you're encouraging them. When they make a mistake, you're helping them not to feel anxious or defeated. Yeah. There's a level of protection there, of security that you're developing in their driving skills. And the better you do that, the more confident they will be at driving. And I think it's the same thing with the cell phones. We don't just hand our kids a phone. We wouldn't hand our kids the keys to the car. When we hand them a phone, it's going to be, hey, we're going to do this together. Yeah. We're going to learn about the phone. We're going to learn about phone etiquette. We're going to learn about boundaries, where the phone goes and where it doesn't go, how the phone works best and how it doesn't work best. We're going to talk about how this phone changes who you are, your identity. Yeah. Like a driver's license, it brings freedom, right? If a kid has a driver's license and a car, even more freedom. I'm going to give you this phone. In today's world, that's a tremendous amount of freedom. And a kid has to be responsible and ready for it. So just handing them the phone is like handing a 16-year-old the keys to the car without going through driver's ed or behind the wheel and saying, good luck, don't hurt yourself or anybody else. The chances are it's not going to happen. And so even right down to the social media apps, if you're going to give your son or daughter Instagram, for instance, don't just make them an account and put it on the phone and tell them, hey, be good, don't look at bad things. Make an account, put it on your phone. And anytime they want to check Instagram and their account, they can come to you and you do it together. This is the behind the wheel portion of learning to use a cell phone. And they learn with you. And then at some point, you put that account on their device. And you keep it on yours. Now you're going to share content. You're going to see what they're searching for. You're going to see the messages that come in. You're going to be able to... But now you're not doing it side by side. You're just simply, a step further apart. And then you turn off your notifications and you trust them with that app. But you don't just ignore it. Then the check-in becomes, hey, let's sit down and look through your Instagram. What are you posting? Okay. What are you... And we have rules that, we're always going to be friends or connected in some way with those social media apps with our kids. So, and they're going to have, fake Instagram, Finsta accounts. And that happens, but it happens less and less when there's open communication. And that's actually the most important thing with technology today and cell phones in particular is keeping that communication open. Spending ample amount of time with your son or daughter, not focused on the phone, but building rapport, having real relationships, because when they feel safe to talk to you about all sorts of things, the phone is no longer the most contentious thing that you can talk about. So for a lot of kids, when mom says, hey, can I see your phone? It's, maybe there's not a lot on there. But it's the idea that it's a vulnerable thing. I've got my life on there, my secrets, my friendships, and then there's this invasion of privacy, so to speak. And it's not, but that's definitely how they view it. This is their world. And so building that kind of rapport where you're able to talk about tough things with your son or daughter, besides the cell phone, makes the cell phone not so contentious. So again, making sure that there's a need, that there's a responsibility, that there's open communication. Making sure that you're kind of treating it like a driver's license, and that as you take those steps with that piece of technology, that you're doing it in kind of incrementally and giving more responsibility where there's more responsibility demonstrated. So much so that I think some of the experts today even say that, in fact, I've got a good friend who's an author, Jonathan McKee, wrote a great book recently on cell phone technology and social media and that type of thing, has no rule senior year, right? That he's helping his kids get to a point where their senior year of high school, there's no rules. There's no curfew, there's no rules on the phone, there's no monitoring. It's, hey, you're making these decisions on your own. And if we can get our kids to that point when they're 17, they're gonna make those decisions in our household, and they're gonna make mistakes. But they're gonna make them in a safe environment where if they fail, the stakes aren't as high as when they fail off at college.
Right.
Where we can see their moods kind of rise and fall, and we can catch them and say, hey, what's going on?
Right.
How are you doing? Something happened?
Yeah.
And giving them the freedom to fail, which is pretty significant during adolescence, means that we also create opportunities to walk them through it and teach them how to process failure and mistakes, teach them how to apologize and own their mistakes. And that's pretty huge. And so, with technology, it's a great tool. It's a great opportunity to engage with our kids in a whole new way. Yeah. And don't look at it as an obstacle, as an evil to be managed. Really look at it as an opportunity to engage with your son or daughter in a brand new way.
As you can tell, everything he's saying, I'm kind of like, oh my goodness, I'm learning right along here. And I'm kind of like, oh, some of the mistakes we've made. But there's always a fresh start, right? I mean, it's not too late. We did make the mistake of giving our child a phone, kind of giving them a few rules, and then letting them run with it for probably, I don't know, a week or so. And then we started checking group texts and things like that, and it was just like, oh goodness, like what were we thinking? What, he didn't know how to conduct himself. He didn't know how to have self-control and go off on his response to his group of friends. And so a lot of what you shared, I feel like we're simply covering the topic of cell phones at this point, which I am more than fine with, and I feel like we could talk an entire hour on just that. I think that there is so much more to explore in terms of, what about Snapchat and what about, but I think mostly what I'm hearing you say is a couple themes that I just want to extract here are that you really do need to take it case by case with each child. It's not necessarily like at the age of, like on your whatever 13th birthday, you get whatever.
Everybody gets a driver's license at 16, everybody gets a phone at 12.
It's not that. It's more looking at how responsible they have been in their lives. But then, the communication piece is huge, I think, for the reasons you stated, as well as I find, we check in with our middle schooler when he's on his phone a little more than we would like. I just say to him, is it because I had a busy work day and I wasn't giving you as much attention as you needed? I work from home. And sometimes that is his answer. He'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I had nobody to talk to and my friends weren't available. And so kind of, being there to be somebody they want to hang out with so that their phone is not their friend. Their only friend.
Andy Crouch wrote a great book called Tech Wise Family. And in it, he cites a study where they asked teenagers today if they could change one thing about their mom or dad, what would it be? And the number one answer was that they wish their parent was on their phone less.
Oh my goodness. That's so convicting.
Yeah.
They're like their parents. They want their parents to be on their phone.
Well, how many times do we nag our kids, get off your phone?
Yeah,
right?
And then here we are.
And if they could say it out loud, if they felt comfortable saying it, they'd say back, hey, mom, dad, get off your phone.
Yeah.
And we're giving them that example. We're giving them a model to follow. And I think it's something to keep in check.
Well, I want to honor our time and wrap up this interview. So as you can tell, wealth of information here. I have some resources that I recommend on my site. So if you want a little more information on this, just go to middleschoolmommer.com. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us today.